Joining me right now is Mr. N. Ram, the director of the Hindu Publishing Group. He's an author and former editor-in-chief of the Hindu. He's been a journalist for many decades and tracked many governments. In fact, for most of our audience members who are very young, Mr. Ram first claim to fame was his expose of the Bofors scandal back when Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister. He now joins us to talk about the signals we're getting from the new cabinet that's been announced by the Modi government and, of course, the entire election that has gone by. Mr. Ram, thank you for speaking with me. My first question to you is this. Is the major signal that the Prime Minister is sending out today that there is continuity and there is strength and his aura of invincibility is intact because this is business as usual?
Yes, he's trying to convey that continuity. The aura of invincibility is gone, as the New York Times story, the headline said, because, the fact is that they have been reduced to a minority, the BJP itself, well short, 32 short, and that's quite a large number in this campaign. But since the so-called kingmakers, actually there are three, not just two, because one, of course, is the Telugu Desam party of Mr. Naidu, which really delivered. They were the senior partners in Andhra Pradesh, BJP being very much a junior partner there. JDU, led by Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, they have delivered also. And not to be forgotten, the JDS in Karnataka, they may have got only 2 seats, but they were crucial because they delivered more than 5% to the BJP, and I think that is what tilted it in favor of the NDA in Karnataka. So these three, without these three, of course you can play that game either way. If this had been, it had gone differently, etc. But those were key factors in getting the BJP even to this number. Having lost badly in Uttar Pradesh, really suffered a big. That's the real story of the election, I think. The ascendancy of the Samajwadi Party and the Congress alliance, the performance in Maharashtra, which is somewhat expected, but not perhaps on this scale, and of course West Bengal. Tamil Nadu being the constant, delivering 100 out of 100, 39 out of 39 plus 1 in Pondicherry. So those went against the BJP, and so he's trying to. Mr. Modi can't be underestimated because he tries to consolidate what strength he has, but that strength is greatly diminished as the headlines in the media have made very clear, whether you like it or not, whether whoever is holding these heavyweight portfolios, the fact is they are dependent on their allies, and this is a real coalition government. Earlier also, when the BJP had a majority in 2014 and 2019, 303 in 2019, it was formally a majority, a coalition government, but not really a coalition government. Whereas this time, the reality that stares you in the face is it is a coalition government where the leading party is dependent on others, and in particular these three parties that I mentioned, and their leaders who are quite formidable.
But in fact, Mr. Ram, a lot of the conversation going into the swearing in was about what that cabinet is going to look like and what these three gentlemen and these three allies are going to demand in order to support this government. But now that the cabinet, we know the details of the cabinet, it doesn't seem as drastic as one had expected. The allies, TDP, for example, has civil aviation. JDU's Lalan Singh has Minister of Panchayat Raj, Fisheries, Animal Husbandry. Ramnath Thakur has Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. He's the junior Minister of State. None of the major heavyweight portfolios have gone to the allies.
Mr. Kumaraswamy has got heavy industries and steel, which is quite major.
Yes, but Mr. Kumaraswamy's party is only giving 2 seats to the BJP, and perhaps if they were to pull away in a hypothetical situation, it wouldn't really bother the BJP as much as the other 2 allies, which is Mr. Naidu and Mr. Nitish Kumar. So my question to you here is...
just one thing, but nevertheless, they have contributed 5.6%.
Yes,
you see to the alliance. Otherwise, it would have been very close. Congress was the share was 45.39% and BJP was only 46.09%. So the tilting factor in the Karnataka election, which enabled NDA to get 19, as opposed to 9 for the India bloc, I think was the JDS. So the importance is represented in this ministry, I think.
So my question was, Mr. Ram, should the BJP at this point be credited for negotiation that perhaps many people underestimated their ability to do, to bring the allies and still find a way to continue with their own ministers without having to give up too much?
Yes, I think that's yes. The BJP consciously stressed continuity because there were some rumors that Amit Shah may not be given home and so on, but those were not taken seriously, I think, by those who are in on this, people who had followed this closely, because we know that the most formidable of the so-called kingmakers is Mr. Chandrababu Naidu, who's going to become chief minister. His interest is in Andhra Pradesh, where his interest is in going after Mr. Jagan Mohan Reddy of the YSRCP, because they're really very bitter relations, and I think he would want the central government to use the coercive agencies of state. He's seen that many times, to go after Mr. Jagan Mohan Reddy and those close to him. He's made it pretty he said it virtually openly that they were looting the state and we want to I'll recover all that and all that. So his interest is in Andhra Pradesh, where he wants to consolidate his hold. It's always been so. Mr. Naidu, I think, is a very formidable politician. He's been against the BJP. He's been with them. But this time, I think he aligned with the BJP because he knew what was coming and is quite content to be there. But he has to be watched because he's not... Naidu doesn't really belong to the Hindutva camp, nor does Nitish Kumar, but certainly Mr. Naidu doesn't. He's come out very clearly. There's a video clip where he says any leader is better than Mr. Modi, and so on. Came out in, I think, February of 2019, interviewed by Srinivasan Jain of NDTV, because these things happen in politics, but he's not. The point is, he's not really Hindutva. His interest is in getting special status for Andhra Pradesh because they lost the great city of Hyderabad. He wants compensation for that. Likewise, Bihar wants compensation, special status, because after the bifurcation of the state and a lot of the the resources going to Jharkhand, Mr. Nitish Kumar also thinks it's just to raise that demand. So their interest lies there, but still, you're dependent. And they have been accommodated. These ministries, although a few of them, have not really gone to players like this earlier. As you mentioned, Mr. Ram Mohan Naidu on civil aviation, Kumarasamy, heavy industries and steel, and let's see who becomes speaker. We don't know yet.
Yes, is the signal also from the Prime Minister that, yes, the party for various reasons might have gotten fewer votes, but the ministers still have his faith, and so they continue in their positions, because there's been no shuffle in any of the ministries, any of the big ministries, except for maybe Smriti Irani or Anurag Thakur. The rest of them continue exactly where they are. So is this also a sort of vote of confidence that the ministries have performed well and we're going to continue exactly as we were?
Yes, except that the finance minister is not a member of the Lok Sabha. She said famously that I didn't contest because I didn't have the money. And Mr. Jaishankar, Minister for External Affairs, a professional, has not contested the Lok Sabha election. So they are Rajya Sabha members, which is a bit unusual for such important ministries, particularly finance. But of course, you remember that Mr. Manmohan Singh was Prime Minister and very much in charge of the finance man without being elected to the Lok Sabha. So that's there. But as for the other heavyweight ministries, yes, there's a strong emphasis on continuity. Mr. Amit Shah Rajnath Singh, who's the second-ranking member of the cabinet, Nitin Gadkari, who is known to be at odds with Mr. Modi but retains his portfolio, and of course Mr. Nadda has been given quite important portfolios, which suggests he's on his way out as BJP president. Health and family welfare and chemicals and fertilizers. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, agriculture and farmers. These are new things. So I think Mr. Modi has tried to make the best of this situation. The BJP is still by far the dominant party in the political system as measured by elections, but it is on the decline, which the CSDS Lokniti poll clearly brings out, the post-poll survey.
Mr. Ram, the other thing that I found interesting about this cabinet announcement was you mentioned Mr. Nitin Gadkari, Mr. Piyush Goyal, who's continued in his Ministry of in Commerce, Mr. JP Nadda. Yeah. While there's stability, there appears to be a lack of growth for everyone except Ashwini Vaishnav, who's been given additional charge. The rest of them, Nitin Gadkari has been Minister of Transport and Highway now for 10 years. And hasn't been given any additional charge. In fact, at one point he had ports as well, which he doesn't have anymore. Mr. Piyush Goyal has held the same ministry now for 10 years and has not been given any additional charge. His name was being considered or touted, rumored for finance minister. And he's done the work this time. He's won the popular election, which he was not a Lok Sabha member previously, but he still hasn't been rewarded. So is there a lack of growth for these ministers as well? Do you find that interesting?
Yes, there is a lack of growth for the BJP, I think, in most cases. They've done well in Karnataka, they've done very well in Odisha and so on. But so those are, one would expect people from there, representatives from there to be recognized. I think this reflects what this CSDS Lokniti poll finds the stagnating popularity of Prime Minister Modi. The gap with Rahul Gandhi has narrowed, and in Uttar Pradesh, this poll found that Rahul Gandhi is actually ahead, believe it or not, of Prime Minister Modi as the who do you prefer to be Prime Minister? And the answer came, Rahul Gandhi is ahead. So this shows that, there is a certain degree of stagnation for the BJP, even though it's done well in, broken through in Odisha, for example, and has done okay in Karnataka. But it performed far below expectations. And the fact that they raised this the target, talked about 400, not always making it clear whether it's for the BJP or NDA, but let's assume it's for the NDA, which means BJP would get something like 380. It's well short of that, and it shows a certain decline. And what this poll finds, there's a Hindu editorial today which sums it up: a drop in satisfaction levels with governance in general, the stagnating popularity of Mr. Narendra Modi, the resilience of regional parties, the rejuvenation of the Congress, largely led by Rahul Gandhi, and the fading of Hindutva for marginalized sections in the Hindi heartland, and unemployment and price rise as key issues as compared with the Ram Temple, for example. People may have wanted to go there, but this politicization of the Ram Temple issue has not really delivered for the BJP. And on the other side, the India bloc, just arithmetically and also in terms of chemistry, notably in the state of Uttar Pradesh, I think they've been able to deliver considerably, although there's still a gap. The gap is not very much between the two blocks. And therein lies the opportunity for the opposition. And you would have seen the statement by Mr. Mohan Bhagwat, the supremo of the RSS, indirectly criticizes the BJP also for this disinformation campaigns and not respecting the opposition. He also praises the BJP's performance. I think there's a message there which shows that, this kind of hate politics, majoritarianism as an ideology, it's reaching its limits. That's the lesson. That's how I read it.
I also want to ask you about what Parliament is likely to look like in this term that's coming up, because there are obviously This time, the government is a coalition, which means that they will need a buy-in from their coalition partners every time they want to do something. Plus, there's a far stronger opposition at 232 than there has been in the last two terms.
Yes.
What do you expect will be the strength of the government to continue to move bills like it has done in the last 10 years?
It cannot take Parliament, or in particular the Lok Sabha, for granted. They did it with doing away with the special status for Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir. That's behind us, perhaps. These demands will arise, and then the NRC exercise. Are they really going to conduct it all over? How will the TDP respond to this? And one nation, one election, will that go forward? Does it mean that Mr. Chandrababu Naidu's government will be dissolved in a couple of years so that it can align it with national elections? And even delimitation. The southern states, which are far, the gap is widened between the Hindi, so-called Hindi heartland, and the southern states. Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka is really widening. Are they going to accept their weight reduced in governance at the center? So I don't know all this. These are issues that will have to be negotiated now, discussed in and outside Parliament. And so one would expect a more contested government. And I think this is good for the country. There's no doubt about it that these things have to be negotiated. Some common ground has to be found. This is, again, of all people, the RSS Supremo has put this forward, that you must find solutions for the country. Don't treat your opponents as enemies. Stop this disinformation campaigns on the social media. If it really means that, he's coming to terms with the reality of the current situation. I think that's a very interesting message. I think that's come out. The other question is Mr. Modi temperamentally up to living in a coalition arrangement and doing these things? I wouldn't underestimate him. He's never had this experience, but because he as chief minister, he won every election. He was totally dominant as prime minister. He centralized all authority in the PMO and in his own hands, of course, with the support of Mr. Amit Shah. So, but is he up to this? I suppose he has no choice. Behave in a different way, in a somewhat different way. If he doesn't, they'll go down further.
Do you expect to see more federalism or a boost for federalism going forward? Because this has also been an election that regional parties have done really well in. So there's Mamata Banerjee and Stalin has done really well. Uddhav Thackeray in Maharashtra, Sharad Pawar, these regional parties, Chandrababu Naidu, performed really well, and they've sort of consolidated power within their own states. Is that a flex that we expect to see going forward as well?
Yes, I think, the Indian constitution doesn't really guarantee constitutional federalism. It's a quasi-federalism, as is well known. And over the years, the center has accumulated more and more authority, particularly financial powers in its hands. Even though the power of dismissal of state governments has been somewhat moderated by the Supreme Court after the Bombay judgment in 1994. But over the years, and particularly with this government, the Modi government, more and more, it's become, the states have lost out massively. But we know from the past that when there's a coalition government, there's a phenomenon which we journalists used to term, or have been terming, political federalism. Although it's not guaranteed in the constitution, by virtue of having to accommodate the demands of the states because of exactly what you said, the rise of regional parties, their growing strength. I hope that there'll be some kind of at least political federalism. And the kind of behavior that we have seen from governors who have tried to thwart in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, in Andhra Pradesh, in West Bengal, where they try to thwart every legislative initiative of the state government, delaying it, keeping it in their pocket or on the tables, and behaving in a somewhat unpleasant manner in in public. I think all that has to either disappear or get greatly moderated. It'll be contested now actively by regional parties and state governments, I think. And people like Mr. Naidu, Nitish Kumar and Deve Gowda or Kumarasamy, they'll be tested on these issues. Because in the past they've been campaigning for state rights.
In fact, this is an interesting statement I heard from Mamata Banerjee, where she had said that the India bloc has decided not to form the government right now, but that doesn't mean that we won't change our mind tomorrow. Roughly, I'm paraphrasing what she said. But is she keeping the NDA on its toes, or is there a possibility that the India bloc will keep trying to destabilize and trying to notch up numbers?
I don't see that as a real prospect, because the gap is still there, and of course they could lose the majority if these two. I mean, Mr. Nitish Kumar is notoriously changeable. You remember that he came in as chief minister for the NDA, midstream he jumped ship, and then he was a key initiator of the India bloc. He was going to be convener, which didn't happen. So, he could switch. And Mr. Naidu himself, who's of course much more rooted in his own program and perhaps ideology, he could change. But I don't see that happening, because these are mature politicians and they know what they want, and so on. I think there's one crucial factor that could make some difference. It's the Maharashtra election, assembly election. Mm. If the India bloc does as well as it has done in the Lok Sabha election, and the NDA performs poorly, then the Shiv Sena MPs, apart from Ajit Pawar faction of the NCP, which claims to be the real NCP, they got only one seat. They're already sulking. The people with Shinde, they may go back to the original Shiv Sena, and that could be a factor in reducing the strength of the NDA. But I don't see the India bloc forming an alternative. But of course, Mamata Banerjee, who's faced a life and death struggle, if you like, politically speaking, in West Bengal, because the BJP went all out, will say that. And she's won a famous victory, the TMC, this time. I don't know if anyone expected such an emphatic victory. The polls said otherwise. That's another story, the rout of the exit polls, which I greatly enjoyed, actually, because they were clearly led by propagandistic, at least not all of them. I think I had respect for Pradeep Gupta's polls, but it was unfair to make him cry on national television. They threw him under the bus. He is a professional. He got it wrong. But the unanimity of the others, other than the Dainik Bhaskar poll, which I think got it reasonably, I mean, they didn't go to 400. So I enjoyed that, because it shows what, propaganda.
So do you believe that the channels that carried these polls are also part of that propaganda?
Yeah. Yes. Some of them, or the big ones, television channels didn't do well this time. They had some good data. India Today had some good data. And I followed what Rajdeep Sardesai in particular said, but they didn't do well when it came to the polls. And the propaganda comes in picking up all the positive, pro-BJP elements and then bringing that out. Now, for example, what's the big story? Mr. Modi coming back for a third term is a story, but the bigger story is the loss of majority. But I think they constantly try to emphasize the third term hat-trick rather than this. Initially, during the discussion, they did. That's what I call propaganda, the emphasis, saying we've done very well, but you're only you're 32 short. And that's the big story. And the other big story is Uttar Pradesh, which came out in some of the commentary, but doesn't really matter, because people have realized on the ground the realities that I mentioned, the stagnating popularity of the Prime Minister Modi, fading of the Hindutva factor to some extent, the Hindi heartland. Not all the states, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Uttarakhand, they delivered for the BJP.
Mr. Ram, there is, of course, the question of representation within the cabinet that has been announced. For the first time in India's history, there's no Muslim minister in the cabinet at all, including in minority affairs. We understand there's no Jat representation either. Within the Council of Ministers, there are 2 Sikhs, 2 Buddhists, 1 Christian. What should we read into this? Now, there is one point of view on the internet that says the Muslims didn't vote for the BJP. They shouldn't expect representation. There is another idea that the government needs to represent everyone. Would you explain to us what you believe?
I think this is a Hindutva regime in large part, and they want to assert that. In fact, we have to look at the data closely, but there is clear evidence, I think, already of Muslim consolidation. Wherever they voted strategically and also tactically, I think, in many places. This was reported to the credit of the media even earlier, before the election itself. But there's this trend, this phenomenon now is going to be significant. So it's like collective punishment that you visit on an entire community. I mean, more than 200 million people, and not a single representative in the cabinet. That's a disgrace for a secular country. It's disgraceful in this. But then that's how this party has gone. It has fielded some Muslims in a few places, negligible. Christians in a few places. Because of the Northeast, it's different. Not having a single Muslim, I think, speaks a great deal about this ideology of Hindutva and the project of Hindu Rashtra. Some of the Western press calls it Hindu first policy. Okay, let's adopt that term, Hindu first. So no place for Muslims. 200 million plus people who are your citizens. So I think that's a huge shortcoming of this government.
Mr. Ram, thank you so much for giving me your time and having this conversation with me. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. I do hope we can talk again in the future as this government now develops and starts to move with its plans. And, in a coalition government, it'll be interesting to see how many of these plans they will still be able to push forward, things like UCC or Agniveer, which now some of their allies have asked that they relook at. Mr. N. Ram is the director of Hindu Publishing Group. He's an author and the former editor-in-chief of The Hindu. Thank you so much for speaking with me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, Faye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.